All right, so to assistant coach and going from D3 to D1 is a lot. You're doing both at the same time. So how are you handling everything?
I'm loving it, enjoying it. I mean, I loved what I was doing at Rowan. A great group of guys, great team. Learned a ton as a head coach because you had to, at that level, you're everything, right? You're the head coach, but you're taking care of budget and equipment orders and everything else. And what's been cool here is, working with Mike, working with coaches, that just a great group that's familiar with each other, where I can kind of fulfill a role that I tend to think I'm pretty good at. Focus more on offense, player development, community stuff. It's just right up my alley, and I'm soaking it in, learning a lot. Naturally, I was in the pros and played at this level, so it's not entirely new to me, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and plus, most importantly, this is home for me.
How is this team shaping up from an offensive standpoint?
I've enjoyed the group. I think we got a lot of different weapons. We have guys who can shoot, guys who can score, multiple playmakers, which we've enjoyed, and I've always enjoyed teams that can go multiple directions, right? We can be a little bit bigger, be a little bit smaller. So we've tried to create some things that are flexible enough, right, where guys are organized, but still we can go different directions and kind of stick with doing the same things. We want to play in a way that is fun for players to play. It's fun for people to watch, and I think this group can do it.
So are there any players on this team that remind you of yourself when you played?
I don't think anybody's willing to shoot as much as I did. Maybe Zach will let it fly, but mostly not as much off the dribble. I think Ace is a really, really capable point guard. He's more of a pass-first guy, but he's a really capable scorer as well. So, we hope to see more of that, especially on this big stage. But between Ace and Kanye is pretty dynamic guards, creative. They're on the attack. I've enjoyed working with those, and then the guys off the ball. I mean, we got multiple guys who aren't shy and who love to put it up, and that's certainly the way I like to play. So I'm not going to stop anybody from doing that from an assistant coaching standpoint.
So you mentioned Ace. We were talking with Mike earlier. He said he feels Ace has become a better shooter, and obviously he watched Ace at VCU up close. But watching him on film, would you say that he's improved in his shooting since he was at VCU?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, naturally I'd seen these guys play at VCU the last couple years, but I've been very, very impressed with Ace's shooting ability. I mean, I think he's a great shooter. There's just no doubt about it. And part of it, his other attributes, just being on the attack, being a great passer, often probably overshadow the fact that he can really be a great shooter. So that's something we're trying to encourage him in, and I think he's, he was already great at it when I came in and joined the staff. But I think it's something that he's improved upon and will continue to improve upon.
What about him from a leadership standpoint?
Well, he's a winner, and he's a competitor. I like to joke that even if he might not be 100% during some of the drills, some days he might be dragging when it's time to compete, when the game's on the line, and when we're keeping score. All of a sudden, here comes Ace with a different level of energy and competitiveness, and I think that's his biggest gift. He's tough, he's competitive. That's how he leads, right? He loves to compete, and I mean, boy, who wouldn't want that?
So going back to when you got this job, how did everything come about? Because you were announced, I think, the same day that Mike was announced. So how did everything come about? And when you got the chance to come back to Penn State as an assistant coach, what was your immediate reaction?
Well, it happened very quickly, to say the least. Again, I was very content doing what I was doing at Rowan. That's home for me. So between here and there, these are my two places I call home. And I had first met Mike, believe it or not, when I was in high school. He was right out of college speaking at a camp, and I met him and seen him now and again over the years. A couple years ago, talked more at length, but just we connected. He called me and just to kind of ask some questions about Penn State in general. I'm usually not shy with the answers when it comes to Penn State basketball, so we talked at length, and by the end of the conversation he said, would you be interested in coming back? And just knowing what his vision was, and we were in alignment of just what needs to be done here from a program standpoint, style of play standpoint. I said, well, I would have to be. And sure enough, within probably 4 or 5 hours, it was a done deal, and I was hopping in the car the next day to come up here. So it was a fun, unexpected adventure. I've always tried to embrace it like that, and it certainly wasn't hard for me to convince me to come back here. But more importantly for me is I was a head coach. I'm not going to work for somebody I don't believe in, and I believe in his vision. I believe in him as a person, and naturally I believe in this place. So that made it all easy in the end.
And how would you say that belief in Coach Rhodes has strengthened now that you've been working with him for seven months about?
Is that how quick? Yeah, it goes quick.
Yep.
Well, it's certainly stronger. I mean, anytime that's the case, I mean, I knew enough about him personally, but also through other people to know it's worth coming. But when you work with somebody and you see how he's willing to implement and work and clarify vision and stick with it and teach his guys, I've certainly learned a ton just in only 6 or 7 months. So I'm really excited, just from a personal standpoint, to continue to soak it in and improve at what I want to be great about.
So you got a reputation as an offensive coach when you were a head coach, but now that you're an assistant, how are like his views of what you've been doing and your vision for offense? How do those align with what you were doing at Rowan? Now that obviously you're working together as an assistant, so
yeah, pretty similar. And probably the only difference is just I think the principles for great offense are the same, right? I mean, you want to involve everybody, play around your best players, create a system that is flexible enough that multiple guys have multiple opportunities to become a more dangerous team, a better, more dynamic scoring team. The only difference is in my role now is that I control the defense as the head coach. So we often use our defense to make offense a little easier. I think our defense and offense fit here, so there is an alignment there, but it's still a little bit different. But philosophically, I'm working with him to implement this vision, right, that we had set for Penn State basketball: to be bold, to be different, to be aggressive. We need to stick with that vision of identity and put it on the basketball court, right? So it's not as simple as just this is the way you play offense at all places, right? It's how does this need to be done here? What kind of vision are we setting, and who do we need to be as a program and as a team? And then let's play offense accordingly. So that's been part of the learning process. It's not just about what do I like and dislike. It's not who do we want to be, and let's put this on the court. And that's always kind of what I believed in anyway. And it's probably because I'm here. This is what we believe. That's who we got to be, and that's how we're going to play offense. And sometimes it might look a little too aggressive for some folks, but we'll probably be sitting there thinking it's not quite aggressive enough.
Speaking in football terminology, would it be fair to call you like an unofficial offensive coordinator of this team? Do you see yourself that way, or?
Yeah, I view my role more as that. Yeah, like I'm focused on offense. The joke is when you come into my office, we're talking about how to score. Whereas for Coach Brunt, he's more focused on the defense, and if we're presenting something before practice, that's how it usually operates. My joke is always I don't remember any team when I was a free agent hiring me for my defensive prowess. I've usually gotten paid to help teams score, so I'm probably going to stick with that for the rest of my life, and I'm confident we can do so here. We got a good group, and I tend to think I'm pretty confident we'll never be boring. That's for sure.
Yeah, so the number one key to getting excitement for a program is, well, obviously the win, but behind that is having an appealing style for the fans that are going to be in these seats. How important do you think that is? Because you mentioned a style that's fun for the players to play in, but also fun for people to come in and watch.
I think it's incredibly important. I mean, nowadays in particular with the competition for recruiting and all these other things, like, recruiting's hard when you're scoring in the 50s, I think, right? It probably should be if people are doing their homework. I think recruiting people to come to your games is also harder when the game's in the 50s, right? Especially when I like to joke when there's a foot of snow on the ground and it's 25 degrees out. Do you want to see a game in the 80s or 90s, or do you want to see a game in the 50s or 60s? Right. I think it's an easy answer. And I think in terms of taking this program to the next level, that's important. The other thing is I think there needs to be a competitive advantage, right? Coach and I talk about this all the time. Within the Big Ten, you need to be different. And that's going to be difference defensively, difference in approach, both ends of the court, both sides of the ball, so to speak. So, yeah, I think it's like in any line of work, if you want to get better offensive players, you need to play in a way that those offensive players want to play. And if you want to get fans excited about basketball, you want to play in a way that makes them excited. It's not rocket science, but most aren't doing that.
Yeah. So if you were to use a word to describe what the fans are going to see when they come to watch Penn State play from an offensive standpoint, what would you use?
Pace, dynamic. You talk about football terms. It's like more of a no-huddle approach. Like we're going to come, we're going to organize quickly, we're going to get into meaningful action, we say, as quickly as possible, right? And if a guy's got a shot, he's going to take the shot. If philosophically, there's no need to set something up just to get the same shot 20 seconds later, right? We believe in being on the attack, being the aggressor, and you'll see that with the approach. And naturally, there's a strategy, there's a method to the madness, but it should be pretty free-flowing, dynamic. You know, we like to use the term self-organized. We're flowing into things we're familiar with, and we know how to play basketball and what we want to get to. And you know, I think our guys have done a really good job of embracing that. But I think it's not the norm, put it that way, in the college basketball climate. And we hope to make it the norm here.
So did you ever play in Rec Hall as a player? I know they left in '96.
No, I wanted to. I used to ask every year, actually, because one of the reasons I came here is I saw a game. These are just on television. I remember seeing one of those crazy games in Rec Hall thinking, well, I want to go to Penn State. And never got to play there. I was actually at the game when they first played back in the Rec in Princeton. And so I'm really excited about that game and hope we can make that a regular event each year.
How is this place the same and different than when it was when you were playing here?
It's a great question. I think the ethos, kind of the culture, the priorities, the identity is still the same, right? I mean, we are a community. We're in an underdog community, I think, in many respects. That we want to know what we stand for. We want to stick with it. We want to win with it. I think there's been a difference in terms of it's just a bigger landscape of college athletics, right? That we have grown into, and I think we're continuing to make leaps and bounds. You know, with Pat and his staff administratively, it is a bigger stage, right? We talk about the big stage of the Big Ten. This is a bigger stage, no doubt about it. And I think the money, the pressure, the competition is even greater. Let alone in a year or so when we bring in more teams from the West Coast. So I think just all those dynamics in play. But the core of this place, we tell guys all the time, even though this is a big place, it still operates as a small town, right? It's got that ethos to it, and that better not ever go away.
Awesome.